Do you think Liverpool are going to go and get Guehi? Do you reckon that's going to happen, Jamie?
I did a video on this yesterday. I think they should go out and get Guehi to replace Konate, because the Konate contract situation is getting a little bit. I'm getting a little bit worried about it because he hasn't signed a contract. There's been no progression on it, and with a year left, Madrid are obviously talking about telling them similar to what they did with Trent, like, don't sign a new contract, come to us on a free.
Bad player.
I would be saying to, because Guehi, I think the one thing he's worried about is if he comes into Liverpool is he wants somewhere where he'll be starting, because obviously with the World Cup coming up next year. But I would be saying to Konate, if you don't sign a contract, then you're not going to be starting. We're going to bring Guehi to come in and start ahead of him. I think obviously I'd say Konate is better than Guehi. I think him and Van Dijk have a very good partnership. But do I think we'll go get him? I think a player on the last year of his deal, Crystal Palace want to sell him. Who want to go to a team that are competing for big trophies. I think we're going to go for him. I think there's obviously been confirmation Liverpool have an interest in him. I think you can get him for a good fee. He's homegrown. He's good on the ball. I think he's only turned 25. He can take that next step in his career to maybe, because some players, people always talk about like players that like maybe say clubs like Crystal Palace that, or whatever, Southampton, Brighton, when they move to another take a step up to a team competing with trophies all the time, they need to be able to take that next step in their career and develop. And I think Guehi is at that stage now, and I think he could come into a Liverpool team and go to another level in terms of his ability. So I think Liverpool will go for him, and maybe take our spending to over 250 million. So I think it would be a good option. I think he's probably the best option out there right now. And I think he would fit in well at Liverpool.
I don't think he's necessarily the best option, but I do agree in saying it's a good option. I think, like you said, for his age, there probably isn't many centre-backs that have been captain of their team off the back of a big season, winning an FA Cup. He's primed for that next big move. Like you said, 25, you've got him. He'll be available for the next 5 to 6 years. So he's a long-term replacement for whoever you do replace him with. Now, I think he's obviously not at the same level of Konate. I think Konate is a better centre-back, but I think playing next to Van Dijk will help Guehi improve his game and sort of take those steps forward. I feel like for me, when watching him, he's a very good all-round centre-back. He does everything at a good 7 out of 10 level, but I don't necessarily see where he excels necessarily. But like I said, in a World Cup year next year, he's going to want to go to a team where he's going to play a lot of football. So if Liverpool are to sign him, it's going to have to be on the basis that Konate does leave. But if he does come in, it's a good move, good signing. The fee, I think that's where the questions will come, because if you guys are going to pay what they wanted from last summer, I think it was 70 mil they wanted from last summer.
Yeah, they're not going to get that now, because I think what's being reported is 50 to 60, but I said Liverpool are going to try to go in for like 40. And I think the other thing that will come in is that if other clubs come in for him, like I think Man City could do with another centre-back. I think Arsenal are okay, but it depends who else will come in for him. And I think Liverpool right now is probably the best option for him, if I'm thinking about like where he could maybe fit into a team. And
I think the only other clubs looking at him are like Tottenham and Newcastle. So it's the level below you guys. So you guys are definitely going to be the more attractive option. But if it's a deal for what you've said there, 45, 50 million pounds, very good deal. You really can't go wrong for that price. Probably not many centre-backs you're going to get at that level. So it's a good price. But once you start peaking at the 60s to 70s, there's some better centre-backs available.
I don't think Liverpool will pay that for a centre-back right now. I think with Kwanzaa going, that's where the money is probably being freed up, and they obviously want to bring in cover. I think Gomez, the injury concerns they have with Gomez is the big issue, but I think they do need to bring in someone to replace Kwanzaa, because you don't want to be too short. I think Konate's injury record isn't the best, so like he definitely could pick up something. I think Van Dijk is just a mainstay. He's always there, other than the one season he's had a bad injury. So, like that. Like I think that's a good point as well. Like anyone that goes in beside Van Dijk automatically just becomes better because of the level that he raises them to. So, yeah, I think Konate and Guehi, the two of them fighting out. I think Liverpool are going to be playing like 60 to near, probably be 38 games. It'd be 50 to 60 games next season. So he's definitely going to get game time if he does come in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I like Guehi to you guys, man. I like that a lot. I was saying last night on my other channel, Terry Flewers TV, like sobering. genuinely sobering if you get him. I actually don't think there's any difference between him and Konate, and I think he'll prove that in a better team. I think sometimes if you go back and look at Van Dijk at Southampton, a lot more mistakes, a lot more issues, a lot more times he was caught out. And I think that's just due to the fact he was playing with lesser players and you get exposed a little bit more. You know, the midfield doesn't protect you as well, which means you step out more. It's harder to keep a solid line because you're not playing with players as good as Robertson, as Konates, as Matip's, Trent's, etc. The goalkeeper's not as good. So even when you do make a mistake, you're conceding more goals. And I think it'll make you look worse sometimes. I think you put when Guehi plays for England, that's why he was our best player at the Euros. He just suddenly had a better midfield and a better
players around him.
And suddenly he didn't. I was worried about him at the Euros, going, is he going to handle it? Because I didn't watch as much of him as I do all the other centre backs. I don't watch as much of Crystal Palace, but he just looked like he was gliding. I look at it now, and what a mistake this is by Chelsea. What a mistake this is by Chelsea letting him go, because he is, for me, well ahead of every other centre-back currently at their football club. And if you guys can pick him up for around 30 million, and again, from Palace's point of view, look, they might not have gone on to won the FA Cup and things, although I don't know if he played in the final. I want to say he was out. Maybe he did play out. I might be wrong on that. But didn't Spurs offer like 70 million, including add-ons in January for him?
55 plus 15. And
15. That's again, if he might have played in the FA Cup final. I could have absolutely misremembered FA Cup final.
No, he did play.
He did play. Yeah. He must have played. So, yeah, they might not have gone on to have won that trophy. So they probably don't regret it as fans, to be fair. That was a silly thing for me to say. But, yeah, I just think to myself, he could be phenomenal for you guys. And it's not that expensive.
It's a very Liverpool transfer, is what I would say. Yes. It's just like they find good market opportunities like that and they go out and just buy them. Like you think of, I know it's obviously a different situation, but you think back to like Salah, Mane, even Konate when they brought him in, like how good he's been. You're talking about someone that's probably worth 60 or 70 million himself now. Just players that they brought in for like 35 million, 40 million. They're really good at finding opportunities like that. And with him having a year in his contract, I just think Crystal Palace are going to want to sell him. They don't want him going on a free next year. It's just the kind of perfect situation if they were to get him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's excellent, and the fact you're getting him for the same price you're selling Kwanzaa for, it looks like you're going to. There's reports that you might. No, I thought it was the standard. It actually turns out it was from the Sun, so we take it with a pinch of salt. About 40 million for Harvey Elliott, but
yeah, they have a buyback clause with Kwanzaa as well. So like, if it goes on and becomes good, they should just buy him back.
Yeah, it's crazy. You guys are just out there doing bits, and I still think you're going to go for Isak. I still think. It still hasn't been shut down. I think you're going to make the move. And we had a guy that called in, actually. He's a Newcastle fan, but he lives in Sweden. He gave a really good breakdown of, why the press, for instance, he was saying the press in Sweden really want Gyökeres to go to United. Because there's still, even though he's 27, there's this belief that maybe the pressure of having to go in and deliver straight away title races, he could succumb to it. Which I was like, fair. Like, that's their player. On Gyökeres, he goes, there's almost no news on Isak, there's almost no news on him leaving. He said the belief is, yes, if his head's completely turned by Liverpool, he could push for the move and Liverpool could get him. But basically, they're saying he's such a nice bloke, he won't do that. So that's the thing I think for Newcastle fans are going to be hoping on it, because that's the only way it goes. If he says to you, I'd love to join, but I'm not going to force my way out of Newcastle, I love it here, I think it's impossible, because Newcastle's owners will just say no to everything you bid. Where if the player says, I really want to come, I think that's where Liverpool get it done.
I mean, how often do we even see players push for moves anymore? Maybe like 10 years ago, it used to be very often. Players would just be like, yeah, I want to leave and start doing that. I'm not turning up to train and stuff. But over the last 5-6 years, it's very rare that you get players moving like that.
But I think that's because the well-run clubs sell them. I think you saw it. We use City as the example because of what they've achieved in the last 10 years. When Sane wanted to go, that happened really quickly. When Ferran Torres wanted to leave, and again, Ferran Torres wasn't their best player, but the premise is the same. They just got rid of him. Chelsea went through this, and this was when Chelsea was still winning, in title races. Look how easy it was for the likes of, again, the money had to be right, but Hazard wanted to leave, cool. Matic wanted to leave, cool. They were well run back then, Chelsea. And I think that's what you do. Man United with Cristiano Ronaldo could have said no way, and then he becomes disgruntled and starts kicking off. But when you're well run, you get the right money. But I think you sell these players. Liverpool, Coutinho, convinced him, but in the end, it was like, yep, we'll let you go with our blessing. Good luck. We'll get the right money for you. Because I think if they'd have kept him against his will, that's when you create a horrible dynamic in your dressing room. And funnily enough, United have done this loads. We've done the right thing by not selling someone. Well, not selling someone like Pogba was I love Pogba. And I don't blame Pogba per se. I never have done. But when his agent was touting him 18 months in, 2 years into clubs on a regular basis, we should have sat down and said, do you really want to be here? He said, no. We should have gone, no problem. As long as we get the right money for you, we will sell. Instead, he done 2 or 3 more years at the club, and it just became more and more toxic because he didn't really want to be there. The fans were getting annoyed. He was falling out with managers because they could clearly see he didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
We know he didn't want to be there because you wouldn't be having your agent consistently talk to other clubs on your behalf. But Man United refused to talk business, and it created a problem. So that, for me, is I don't think you'd see it publicly play out with Isak. But I think if you walked into the office on Monday morning and said, look, guys, I want to go to Liverpool. It's a dream. I thank you all. And was professional about it. Newcastle was so well run, they would say, if we get X as a minimum, we'll get the business done. He'll say, yep, no problem, but I'll cause no trouble. I'll come to training. I'll do all the right things. And then I think it happens. I think clubs have realized holding players against their will generally has no positive effect on the footballing element of the team. So you are right, George. You don't see it play out anymore, but I think it's because clubs have realized it don't work at the end of the day. It just because you guys had it with Kane for it. You know, when that stuff happened with Kane, it's just not a good look for everybody. Do you know what I mean? Because he was definitely told he could go because he loves your club too much to. He was because what I read from really credible people is he said all these goodbyes on the last training session of the season, hugging the sort of the dinner ladies and the kit people, saying goodbye. Like they told him he was going to be allowed to go, and then they fucking went back on it. Like, and then Harry Kane got all the shit. Do you know what I mean? It was like, hang on, you told me not to come back, and now you're telling me I've got to. Crazy.
Got to learn, man. Gentleman agreement's not a real thing. So hopefully he doesn't use any of those in any more of his negotiations, man.
I hear you. I really do. Look, I want to.